Hey, good day to you. This is Todd. I am a regular dude walking in the Word. We are looking at chapter 19 of Numbers right now. We talked about yesterday the red heifer, and that ties right into today. This is one chapter, and it all ties together. And really, today we're dealing with death, okay? And what I'm going to be pointing out is the unhealthy fascination with death that we have so much of in our world today. So let's look here today at Numbers chapter 19, and then I'm going to be reading verses 14 to 22. Yesterday, I already had read verses 11 through 13, which also talked about death and how if you touch a dead body, you were unclean, and all that. So we talked about that yesterday. We're going to keep on reading here, starting at verse 14, and finish up the chapter all the way to verse 22. So it says this is the law that applies to a person who dies in a tent. Anyone who enters that tent and anyone who is in it will be unclean for 7 days. And every open container without a lid fastened on it will be unclean. Okay. The tent's unclean for 7 days. Okay. Verse 16, anyone out in the open who touches someone who has been killed with a sword or someone who has died a natural death or anyone who touches a human bone or a grave will be unclean for 7 days. Okay. This is something that everyone would be involved with at one time or another because you're handling death in some way. Although some of the priests and stuff were told not to handle death at all. Someone else was supposed to do it for them. And in fact, if you had that Nazirite vow, if you took the Nazirite vow, you also were to stay far away from death. And we saw when we were talking about Samson how he kind of ignored that particular thing and associated death with death. All right, verse 17. For the unclean person, put some ashes of the burnt purification offering into the jar and pour fresh water over them. Okay, this is the jar that has the ashes from the red heifer we talked about yesterday. So it's all tied together. Then the man who is ceremonially clean is to take some of the hyssop, dip it in the water, and sprinkle the tent and all the furnishings and the people who are there. He must also sprinkle anyone who touched a human bone or a grave or anyone who has been killed or anyone who has died a natural death. The man who is clean is to sprinkle those who are unclean on the third and the seventh day, and on the seventh day he is to purify them. And those who are being cleansed must wash their clothes and bathe with water, and that evening they will be clean. Okay? If you're associating yourself with the unclean, with death, you got to clean yourself up. Okay? And that's a practical thing just for today. If I'm dealing with a situation in our work where someone has died, then after I'm done, we take measures to protect ourselves. But after I'm done, we clean ourselves all up. Okay? And that's just standard practice of health here. And it was taught back then, and I would teach it today too. Verse 20, but if those who are unclean do not purify themselves, they must be cut off from the community because they have defiled the sanctuary of the Lord. The water of cleansing has not been sprinkled on them, and they are unclean. This is a lasting ordinance for them. Okay? This basically means excommunication. It could also mean like not excommunication, but execution. Okay, if you're acting, just ignoring this stuff, you could be executed because you're defiling the whole camp or when you do that. But this is a lasting ordinance for them. The man who sprinkles the water of cleansing must also wash his clothes, and anyone who touches the water of cleansing will be unclean till evening. Anything that is unclean person becomes unclean, and anyone who touches it becomes unclean till evening. The bottom line here is they were taught there's times where you have to get unclean to deal with death. Someone has died. It might be a relative or a friend or something that you have to do that. But you weren't supposed to stay in that state of uncleanliness for a long time or dwell in it. Okay, you were not to dwell in uncleanliness. After that was taken care of, you were supposed to clean yourself up. You were supposed to have this sacrifice done, use the ashes and so forth, and you were to become clean. Okay. They had come from Egypt, and Egypt was a culture that was steeped in death. Okay, they really focused on death and mummification and all kinds of teachings about death, and so they were kind of stuck in this world of death. Okay, and you might think, oh yeah, we don't do that today. Well, yes, we do that today. Yeah, you might not personally be doing that, but there is today a fascination with, I would call it like a death cult, that let's say like Disney has come out with movies now promoting this. Okay, and you notice some of the movies that are coming out now are all dark. Like there's not a daytime scene in them. It's all dark and it's all about death. Okay, how many movies do you see that are about killing, and how many movies do you see that are about giving a life? Not too many. Okay, a lot of it is about death. Okay, we today as a culture have this fascination with death. Okay, God has not called us to dwell in that death. Death is necessary. Okay, and we need to deal with that at times, but we're not to dwell in that culture of death. Okay, and so we need to, as Christians, separate ourselves from that. So when those movies come out, about a Day of the Dead and all these things that are just focused on that death, we as Christians should be like, why do we need to watch that? Is that life-giving? No, not at all. Okay, so those types of things we need to stay away from. God has not called us to that. Ask yourself this as I conclude this here: is God the giver of life, or is he the God of death? He's not the God of death. All right. He's the giver of life, and he has given us eternal life here. Some of us have chosen to ignore that eternal life and turn away from it and choose really eternal death. But God is the giver of life, and that's what he wants, is the giver of life. And those are the things we should be focused on. Our mind should be focused on that rather than this constant thing of death all around us. All right, so hopefully that helps an explanation of this and what God was really trying to get at here. Thank you for watching. I am just a regular dude walking in the Word, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow as we continue our journey through the book of Numbers. Lord's blessing. I'll see you then.